Now for our feature story of the day, let's discuss the latest from the high priest of Bitcoin, Max Keiser. He recently made a very bullish price prediction, which I transcribed from an interview. Him predicting Bitcoin hitting 3 million, as well as breaking down the math on how we're likely to get there, and also breaking news as well. He also shared that if we do this GameStop Bitcoin allocation, and they actually put the biddies on the balance sheet, it can drive the stock price up to $1,000. You know what I mean? So we're going to be discussing all this right now. But first, let's start with some of the recent tweets. I want to start right here. And this is transcribing a interview from Max Keiser that he recently shared. So how big is the global market? It's like $400 trillion, referring to the total addressable market. So what if Bitcoin just gets 1% of that market, the total addressable market? Well, then it's $1 million, $2 million, or $3 million per Bitcoin. And I think a couple of things we are going to see happen. Number one, people will no longer accept fiat money for BTC. So you're going to try to buy Bitcoin with your fiat money, and no one will take your fiat money. No one will take your dollars at all. So that will be the moment of panic. You have no choice because the fiat money world and everything that's not Bitcoin is going to zero against Bitcoin. So if you're not in Bitcoin, whatever you're in is going to zero against Bitcoin. And that includes everything, real estate, precious metals, you name it. He also recently shared, in which I transcribed, Iran already got 3% of the global hash rate. So now I think Venezuela will get 3 to 5% pretty quickly. And then at some point, America will say, we've got to enter the 21st century space race of mining Bitcoin, and then they'll try to seek 20% of the hash rate. Then security goes up dramatically, and the price then goes to 400,000, 500,000 per coin. He's been referencing global hash wars for quite some time, and now that you got Trump discussing Bitcoin and this becoming a major topic at the next presidential debate scheduled to take place, I believe, November 5th or whatever, this is a pretty big deal. I mean, what if America said we need to capture 20% of the hash rate, and there is just a global hash war breaking out like we're already seeing in countries around the world? It's going to drive the Bitcoin price up tremendously. Now, also, this headline reads, GameStop implementing a Bitcoin treasury strategy would be a brilliant move and can push their stock to $1,000. Now, Roaring Kitty, he did this huge stream, I don't know, maybe a week ago, had over 650,000 live concurrent viewers on there, which is mind boggling. And I think if the stock price only hit $60, that would have turned his unrealized profit in his position to literally $1 billion, which is, mind boggling. And now, let me see if I can refresh the article because I don't know what happened. It just kicked me off. I can't see the contents. So it's you need to register to see it. Damn it. I was just looking at it for free. Anyways, if they want to be like that, be like that. I'm just going to read you some of the highlights. Max Keiser sparks a buzz with a bold $1,000 price target for GameStop if it follows MicroStrategy's Bitcoin playbook. Crypto trader commended the advice as being brilliant move for GameStop. And let's just discuss that for a few moments. So yeah, GameStop is very cash heavy right now. If they were to hypothetically put, let's say, $1 billion to $5 billion, whatever their market cap is, and back it with Bitcoin as a strategic, as Max puts it here, as a what's the term he used? As a Bitcoin treasury strategy, it could be a brilliant move and it can send the stock price soaring more than 10x, right? Because 10x would just be probably $300 stock price, but he's saying 1,000, so maybe 20x, 25x, whatever the exact numbers are. I don't know. But I think MicroStrategy, well, I know, was the first publicly traded company to put the Bitcoin on the balance sheet. This was back in 2020. It was a genius move. And Michael Saylor looked at it as the only way to save his company because they were burning so much capital because they're cash heavy due to inflation, and keeping anything in the bank, it's like a melting ice cube, as he described it, right? So he put the Bitcoin on the balance sheet as a strategic move, and MicroStrategy has been blowing up. I think they now have roughly, I don't know at this current time, but the other day when I read their numbers, I think they were worth roughly 15 billion worth of Bitcoin. So obviously massive gains. And he just recently announced purchasing another 700 million through a convertible note, which is probably in the process of happening right now during this dip. So we already know the smart money is going to continue to accumulate sats because that's what the whales, aka the smart money, do. Now, other companies have also put the biddies on the balance sheet. You had Tesla, you had SpaceX, Elon's companies. Now, granted, Elon sold the majority of those biddies from Tesla, which was a massive mistake because he'd be up so much more if he didn't do that. It is what it is. And there's other countries doing the same thing. There's a Japanese stock, I think it's MetaPlanet, recently announced putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And now we have the game theory playing out in states across America doing the same thing. You know what I mean? Like pension funds, retirement funds, and all sorts of stuff. So Bitcoin adoption is ultimately continuing to gain traction, which is a beautiful thing. We also have the institutional FOMO, which wasn't here this time previous cycle, 4 years ago. So the institutional adoption really kicked in this year with the ETFs when they commenced their, ETFs went live on January 11th, 5 months ago. And since then, the ETFs have now collectively accumulated roughly 5% of the Bitcoin circulating supply. Mind-boggling. Over 1 million Bitcoin accumulated through the ETF within 5 months. It took MicroStrategy freaking 4 years since 2020 to achieve 214,000 BTC on their balance sheet. And BlackRock achieved that. They now have like roughly 300,000 Bitcoin, now the largest holder of Bitcoin through Coinbase, of course, their custodian. But they achieved this in 5 months since January 11th. So what BlackRock just achieved took MicroStrategy 4 years. So hypothetically speaking, how much more Bitcoin will be accumulated over the next 4 years, like an entire cycle? It's going to get insane. And Max has also warned us several times that he believes there is a ultimate plot, that they're going to take the Bitcoin ETF BTC, the United States government that is, and confiscate it in the name of national security. So self-custody those biddies if you have the opportunity to do so. Obviously, it's the safest, most secure, and only unconfiscatable way to secure your biddies. You got to keep that in mind. Not your keys, not your coins. So if you're keeping your crypto right now on any of the exchanges, it can be taken from you. What happened previous cycle? FTX, second largest crypto exchange in the world. It had sponsors like Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank, Stephen Curry, Brad Brady, what is his name? Tom Brady. All the big influencers in the world were all promoting FTX. Then what happened? Bankman-Fried, within 24 hours from the time they announced filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy, don't worry, guys. Your funds are completely safe. The exchange is not going anywhere. We're going to be here for you guys. A few hours later, I'm sorry, guys, we're filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. All the funds on the exchange have been frozen, and nobody gets their crypto, and the investors are still waiting to be repaid back. And when they do get repaid back, hypothetically speaking, if you had 1 Bitcoin on the exchange, they're only going to be crediting you $16,000. They're not going to return your Bitcoin. They're just going to give you the Bitcoin fiat dollar worth at the bottom of the market, because that's what corrupt mofos do. Unfortunately. So don't keep crypto on the exchange unless you're actively in a trade, and it must be on the exchange. There should be a purpose or reasoning for storing crypto on an exchange, right? Meaning it's actively being traded, maybe, for an example. But if you're treating your, if you're treating the exchange as, your wallet, you're missing the boat altogether, because not only can it be confiscated from you if the government wanted it in the name of national security, which can happen down the pipeline, but also something could happen to the exchange. If it can happen to the second largest exchange, it could happen to the number 1 exchange. It could happen to the 3rd exchange, 5th exchange, 100th exchange. That's why I do not recommend keeping your crypto on the exchanges. Self-custody, way to go. Just saying. What are your favorite self-custody devices? Please do let me know. And what are your thoughts surrounding Bitcoin achieving just a 1%, very modest allocation into a $400 trillion total addressable market, sending Bitcoin to $123 million per coin? And hypothetically speaking, what if Bitcoin achieved 5% allocation? What if Bitcoin achieved 84.9% allocation? I discussed this in yesterday's pod. According to a BlackRock study from 2022, a research report they released, their ideal Bitcoin allocation portfolio recommendation is 84.9%. Hypothetically speaking, if 1% of the total addressable market achieves a $3 million Bitcoin price, what would happen with 85% allocation? hypothetically speaking? Let me know. And when do you feel Bitcoin will finally break that 6-figure mark so we can have our fiesta out here in Puerto Rico? Let me know. And when do you feel we'll achieve the 7-figure milestone? My personal prediction is by the year 2029. I have a personal target for this cycle on a low of 222,000 and as a high 750,000 per coin. But I want to know your thoughts. Then I think the following cycle is when we finally break the coveted 7-figure mark. But I want to know your thoughts. Welcome to the Q&A segment of the live show. We're back at 65 G's, baby. Make some noise for that. We're a pumping, and we're just getting this mofo lit. So let's freaking go.